Hey BookTube, I'm back for another video, and today I'm going to be doing a tag. I haven't done many tags for a while, but today I'll be doing an original tag that I was tagged in. It's by Miss Peeper's Reading Corner. She's a booktuber who deserves a lot more subscribers, and she did me the honor of tagging me in her original tag called Banned Books Tag. So it's a book tag all about banned books, and she is doing a series on her channel where she's been reading banned books and doing videos about them, so I suggest you check those out. I'll leave a link to her channel in the description, and we'll go through the 5 prompts of her banned book tag. So the first prompt is, do you intentionally read banned books? Why or why not? And I don't intentionally read banned books, though the books that I'm interested in sometimes overlap with banned books. But usually it's not something I seek out on my own. It's mostly because I don't actually understand why books are why certain books are banned. Because when I was looking through these questions and just thinking about them myself, do you intentionally read banned books? Well, I didn't even know which books on my shelves would count as banned or not. And I know there's some usual suspects, but you never can find a description for why these books are banned, except for if they're obviously obscene, like, for example, Lolita by Nabokov. And other than that, other books just seem a mystery to me why they would be banned. And so I was actually went through a bunch of lists of banned books, and usually banned books are books, at least some lists are made from school divisions that ban books for certain reasons, and certain websites like to track how many school divisions in, I think just in the U.S., ban certain books. But I did also find a list of books that were banned in my own country, in Canada, and the list is fairly small, and the reasons are not in detail, other than some of them are obscene, with like just content that is too explicit, I guess, for certain audience members, and I don't, and you can, that's obviously can be very subjective, and some of the books that you look on there that are considered obscene, you can think of maybe 5 different examples that are more obscene than examples given on there, and so it's a notoriously subjective thing, and even when I see like book like bookstores, when they do this banned bookshelf or whatever of books that no one wants you to read, even though they're available at every single bookstore, they're available at your local library, they're available as ebooks online. It just seems like it seems like it's more of like a marketing gimmick than any kind of actual, you know, resistance, like hashtag resistance or whatever. Though I do understand, like, if certain school divisions ban certain books, maybe that might interest you more, but that would be something that's banned for children or for high school students, not necessarily for adults. I'd be more concerned if the government was making a concerted effort to ban books, and trying to preserve those books and read those, and learn maybe why the government doesn't want you to read them. Yeah, so that's just a long-winded answer of saying no, I don't intentionally read banned books. So question number 2 is, tell us about your favorite banned book. And because of my answer to the last question, I'm not always sure what books are banned or not. I had to actually go around searching on the internet for certain banned books, and it just seems so random. Like, there was a website I went on that had the most banned books of 2024-25 school year, and the Clockwork Orange was on there. That was number 1, and I've never read The Clockwork Orange. But then there's also books like a book by Sarah J. Maas, and isn't she mega popular? So it doesn't quite make sense to me how this list gets made. or why this book would be banned. I've not read any of the books on this list, but the most, and so I don't really have a favorite banned book. So I'm just gonna have to cop out here and and say maybe the usual three dystopian novels that are given that deal with censorship. So that would be 1984 by George Orwell. That would also be Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, and Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. And those are books that I've read in high school. I've read them many, many times. I've loved them, and they're books that captured my imagination for quite a while, and books that I still find myself thinking about. Though I would say with Brave New World, it's more, the concept is a lot more interesting than the actual story of the novel. Though there are some very good scenes in there that I really like, but so I can't. And even now, like when I see those three books that are usually on those bookstore stand banned book lists, who's banning those books? And like, do we actually have any proof that they're being banned, and any explanation for why they would be considered banned material? I know 1984 has some, some sex scenes or something. Brave New World, I guess, can be fairly loose sexually, but like Fahrenheit 451, it makes no sense whatsoever why that one would be banned. So I don't know. It's a curious thing. So question number 3 is share a story about book banning. So I want to share two related stories, and one of them and they both have to do with me going into education. So I'm being placed into high schools and teaching as a student teacher. And in my previous practicum placement, I was in a rural school outside of the city, and well outside of the city, and it was a small school that was grades from 6 to 12. And the year before I got there, when I was placed there, they had a huge controversy of parents complaining about obscene books or pornography that was in their library, that was available in their library. And because it's ages 6 to 12, it's hard having different ranges of books all available at once in the same area. So what happened is that a couple of parents were poking their nose in the library and going through certain books, looking for books that they've obviously never read from front to back, and trying to find books that were considered obscene. And of course, they found some by going, like, say, I think one of the main books was J.D. Salinger's Catcher in the Rye, and whatever. So what the school had to do is take all their classic books and all their sci-fi and fantasy books and pull them off the shelves and stick them in a back room under lock and key. So if you wanted those books, and say you were in high school, you had to, of course, be a certain age, but then you also had to go to ask a librarian for access to that room, and go into that room and browse the books and choose what you want to take out. Because they didn't want the grade 6 and 7s and 8s, so the middle school years, they didn't want them to have access to these books, and there was a big outcry, and it was a very interesting talking with the librarian about that experience. And it's always very infuriating when it's people who've never read the book themselves and they only hear the negatives, or the so-called negatives from these books secondhand, and they just go with it, and they don't actually read the book themselves, because censorship is always going to do the exact opposite of what you want it to do, and no one who's in the power to censor things seems to realize that, and it's fairly it's very annoying, right? And so then the related story to that would be in my current practicum placement, I'm in a city school, and in the library that I was in their library, I was looking around at the bookshelves. I haven't gone through the whole thing, but I was looking around, and I found a number of classics that you might consider obscene, but I also found um, a collection, an omnibus collection of D.H. Lawrence's novels. And D.H. Lawrence has had a notorious uh, publication history, or at least when it comes to book censorship, because of his books are um, considered so obscene. I've never read him myself, so I wouldn't know, but he's considered one of the top authors of who've been banned the most because of how seemingly obscene his books were, especially for the time. And so it's very interesting to see that this high school, which is grades 7 to 12, has this omnibus collection of his novels just sitting there on the shelf. I doubt anyone ever picks it up and reads it because it's a big fat book of classic novels. Or now they're considered classic. They're in the Penguin Classic line and whatever. But still, it's very interesting to see that. So we move on to question number 4. Which book would you memorize to save it from the censors? And so the book I have as an example for that, the book that I would memorize, so it's not a book that is being censored. It's just a book that you would save from the censors through memorization. And she says it in the style of Fahrenheit 451, where in that novel, how the literary people try to save books from being burned is by memorizing the book itself, because it's not the physical property of a book that's important, it's the words. And so then they make a concerted effort to memorize books and recite them to other people. And for me, that book would be The Constitution of Knowledge, A Defense of Truth by Jonathan Rauch. And this is a non-fiction book. And the important part of this is the subtitle here, where it says A Defense of Truth, not The Defense of Truth. He's not defending capital T truth here. He's defending a truth. He's providing a defense of truth. And I think he does a very good job. I would consider this the 21st century version of John Stuart Mill's On Liberty. If you're not aware, John Stuart Mill's book On Liberty was like this famous 100-page essay arguing for liberty in freedom of speech and freedom of thought. And this book here does the same for the 21st century, defending truth and knowledge from, say, right-wing and left-wing, or far right and far left authoritarian censors that have their own reasons for why they want to change reality, or change or challenge established knowledge. And so he's providing a defense here, and that's why you get the title here, A Constitution of Knowledge. He uses the analogy of the Constitution of the United States, and provides an intellectual constitution of knowledge, defending scientific freedom, scientific inquiry, freedom of speech. This is a bit of this is sort of like a sequel to a book that he wrote in the 90s on free speech, which I have not read myself, so you don't actually need to read that book in order to get everything from this book, because it basically takes the concepts that he applied to freedom of speech in that book and then develops them a lot more in this book here. So he adds a lot more, and then he adds like a whole framework around it, which I thought was really well done, and it's the book that I would certainly want to memorize, because this book, it'll challenge you, because he does challenge all kinds of different opinions in here, but he also provides a very novel approach, which I really liked, and it'll really get you thinking. And it's a book that's more people need to read if they want to understand, if they want to stand up for reality, and the consequences that bad ideas can have. So that would And then we come to question number 5, which is the last question here. Are there any books that challenge your opinions on book banning? And she says, be honest. Uh, and I found it interesting that Miss Peepers, she suggested Lolita as the one book that she had tried reading, but she found it so disgusting, so odious that she couldn't finish it. And I can understand that. I mean, I've read Lolita before myself, and I didn't really like it. I thought it was overrated, but I found that if you approached it differently, if you approached it not as a book that was trying to be controversial and explicit, but approached it as a novel that was trying to challenge. It is a novel in the literary tradition of like the modernist tradition, where he's trying to challenge you and challenge your perspective, and he does a lot. It's almost like a comic novel at times, and especially the ending. And I thought that those parts were interestingly done. It was almost like he was being satirical at times, even though the book is very uncomfortable. But it's intentionally uncomfortable, which doesn't give it an excuse, doesn't make it a good novel by any means. It's just a novel that is trying to get you to squirm almost. And I don't know, it's an interesting book. I certainly wouldn't recommend it because it is trying to show off, it is trying to showboat, and usually those kinds of books are not worth your time. There's other books that are far better that are worth your time, but it still is an interesting book. Like, should that book be banned? Should people be allowed to read it? And I don't know if there's any books that really challenge me. There is one book that always gets me thinking, because it is probably the book that symbolizes hate the most, but no one ever, and probably the book that would be banned the most, I would think, but no one ever talks about it in this context. No one ever reads it during Banned Book Week. No one ever promotes it, and no one should promote it, obviously. But it's, as an historical document, it's probably the most important historical document, or one of the most important historical documents in the context of the Second World War, and that would be Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler. I don't think any publisher publishes it. You might have to get, the only way you could get it is maybe a print-on-demand book or online somewhere. I do know that it is available as for free online on like a website, on certain websites. Like, the text is just there available for you in translation. But that book would be like the absolute apex of a book that's written on hate, on the premise of hate, and you would think, and yet that book is still considered out of bounds. It's a book that is almost certainly not at your library. No one, if people read it, they don't admit to having read it. But for me, I see it as a very important historical document that should be available for people as a way, as an example of how someone's mind can completely be deranged in their thinking, and it can lead to an enormous amount of suffering and destruction. Because he wrote this book before he even became the leader of his country, and you would think that people would want to read the book that the supposed leader had written, and maybe that would change their mind in supporting him or voting him in or whatever. But that wasn't the case, and so he left an obvious trail of what his beliefs were, and no one took them seriously. And I think we should take that seriously, and it's very important as a historical document that book should be made available for people to read. and it's similar. Like in my country here in Canada, it's illegal to be a Holocaust denier. You can go to prison for that, and I don't think that's right. Holocaust denialism is like a terrible it's horrible, right? But it's not. It should not be dealt with through legal sentencing uh, and imprisonment. It's not something that should be the domain of government to enforce how enforce what people believe based on historical events, especially even if they're incredibly charged ones like the Holocaust. Uh, those should be countered by they should be countered by obvious exposure of how shallow their ideas are, because Holocaust denialism is obviously very shallow. Um, and Going back to even John Stuart Mill, where he thinks how important it is, even if there's something like the Holocaust happened and it was horrific, an idea like that, it's extremely important that we have people who push us on that. And so even if we're 99% confident that that is true, that the Holocaust did happen and that it was horrific, we still need people to push back on that in order to challenge our beliefs, so that the beliefs that we believe are correct can be strengthened, and that they don't become what he says is they don't become dogma, because then you're not thinking, then you're not challenging your mind, and you're not justifying your beliefs. Instead, they just become what people have always believed, and whenever that happens, that always stagnates the mind, and it always makes things worse. You can see that especially in religious societies, where when the religion no longer is in that era where it can be critiqued, then it just becomes dogma, and it makes things way worse. It makes things anti-intellectual almost, right? Anyways, those are just my thoughts on this tag. I hope that was coherent. Sometimes when I'm thinking out loud like this, I did put some thought into my replies, but I didn't. Usually with tags, I like to do a lot more thinking on this. But I want to give this tag a boost. It's just a recent new original tag, so I'll be tagging a lot of people to do this tag, and I'll leave them in the description below. But yeah, so I'll leave it there, and if you're tagged, you'll be tagged in the description below. So, and there'll be some people in there that I suggest you check them out. Some of them are newer booktubers who only have a few videos, or they don't have that many subscribers, and I suggest you drop a subscription, and they're all worth it. Or some of them are huge influencers, way bigger than me, so I don't know if they would respond to my tag. But this is a very good tag, and I suggest that everyone does it. So even if I don't end up tagging you, I do suggest that you give it a go, because this is a very thoughtful tag on banned books, and I'm curious to hear what everyone else has to say. So I'll leave it there, and thanks a lot, BookTube.